Today on the Cameron Journal podcast, we are joined by Michele DeFilippo. She is from 1106design.com, and we are going to talk all about publishing, self-publishing, book design, all this type of thing, which is fun. I self-published my first three books before I had an indie press. I teach self-publishing in my writing course, Cameron Journal Academy. And so I'm excited to have this conversation. Welcome, Michele, to the Cameron Journal podcast.
Thank you, Cameron, for having me. I appreciate it.
You're very, very welcome. So why don't we start from the beginning? Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this industry.
Oh, gosh. Well, it was an accident. My first job was at Crown Publishers in New York. It was the first company that offered me a job out of school. So I said yes. I wish I could tell you I had a plan, but I didn't. And just wound up at Crown Publishing and loved it from the very beginning because every project was new and different and unique, and the authors were unique. And it was just so much better in terms of employment than I had hoped for right out of school.
Excellent. Well, and yes, I mean, that's so then how did you get to 1106 Designs?
Well, about 7 years after I started working, my husband and I decided to move to Phoenix, Arizona. And we were young and stupid, and we thought it'd be really easy to find a job in Phoenix, just like it was easy to find a job in New York. And that didn't turn out to be the case.
Surprise.
After freelancing for minimum wage for a few years, I opened up a typesetting business, which was the way that graphics were produced then. In those days, you had to order the words from one company, a typesetting business, and the pictures from another company, a camera company, and literally cut and paste them together in order to make pages. It's kind of hard to imagine right now, but that was the technology at the time.
Right.
And so I had a typesetting business, and my first typesetting machine was $35,000, and that was in 1980 dollars. So it was
some people's house.
It was about the price of a house in Phoenix at that time. So we leased one machine, and the company grew and lasted for about 13 years until Steve Jobs put a Macintosh on everyone's desk.
Right. Yeah. And then, yes, and desktop publishing comes along, and that's the end of typesetting machines like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so let's talk about that transition. What was it like to watch the big $35,000 machine roll out the door in favor of a computer?
Well, I was very slow to recognize it. I should have recognized what was happening a lot quicker, but I didn't. It was not fun. I actually sat in the parking lot and took apart that $35,000 typesetting machine because the leasing company did not want it back. There was no longer a market for typesetting machines. Right. And so I took it apart and put the pieces in a big dumpster. So that was kind of crazy. By that time, I had actually had 3 typesetting machines.
Oh, my.
Yeah. So it was not a fun period in my life, but I went back to freelancing myself using a Macintosh, joined the club, and I did that for about 6 or 7 years. And that's when Amazon came on the scene. And all of a sudden, self-publishing as we know it today became possible. Authors no longer needed a publisher to produce their book. Anybody who wanted to could put a book up on Amazon. So that was, to say the least, an avalanche in the publishing industry. And that continues today. So I had the skills and I thought, I can do this. And I formed 1106 Design.
Excellent. Well, tell us a little bit about the company, what you do, what you offer, and who might be interested.
Okay. Well, that started in 2001. And technically, I'm doing the same thing I've been doing in one form or another for the last 50 years. But today, we serve authors and we can help them with every service they need to self-publish their book, all the way from manuscript editing, all the way up to uploading their files to KDP and Ingram Spark. And the chief difference and the reason I'm doing these podcasts now is because people have forgotten that they don't need a publisher to publish their book. And there's a lot of self-publishing companies in the space, hybrid publishers, whatever they call themselves. And the business model that most of them adhere to is not advantageous to the author. So that's what I can talk about today a little bit.
Yes. Well, speaking as someone who runs a hybrid publishing program, yes, go ahead.
Well, there are good hybrid publishers and not so good. So it really depends on what you're doing, right?
Well, why don't yeah, well we'll start with you because this is about you, not me. So let's start with kind of your commentary on what is right and wrong in the self-publishing indie publishing industry and what makes what you do different.
Okay, well, I have to back up a minute. In traditional publishing, the publisher would hire the experts to produce the book and pay those experts. The author paid nothing, and then
Right.
in return, the author would get a small royalty every time the book was sold,
Yes.
and and that was a fair business arrangement because the publisher deserved to make back their investment and the author got all the services they needed at no cost. So that was fine. Traditional publishing still exists. That model is still around. Independent publishing, when it first became possible, meant that the author was the publisher. The author would pay the experts to produce the book and in return get all of the money from book sales in order to recoup their investment. That too is, I think, a fair business model. But now we have some companies in the space that charge the author to produce the book, and they also take money out of the sale when a book is sold. Now, there are some good hybrid publishers who actually participate financially with the author. For example, they may charge the author for production and then they pick up the marketing expenses. And so that is a true partnership, and there's nothing wrong with that. The publisher is risking its money by investing in the marketing and in return getting a return on its investment if books are sold, right?
Right.
So that's there's a million variations of that, and it's very confusing for authors. So the reason I just want to talk about this is to make sure that authors ask the right questions and they choose the company that suits them best, that they fully understand what decision they're making.
Yes, no, I agree. We have our own weird version of hybrid publishing at Something or Other Publishing. So we in the hybrid program, we charge for developmental editing and line editing, and you pay people directly. We cover all of production and 50% of marketing,
Mm-hmm.
which is its own weird variation that isn't very common sort of thing. And our royalty structure is different and much smaller, so that the resources tend to flow to authors and not us. Because you have all this upfront money sort of thing. So yes, even that in and of itself is not is not the typical hybrid model, and other people have other differences and on all this type of thing. So what are those questions that authors should be asking when they're looking at an indie press that does a hybrid thing or maybe does a somewhat traditional thing? What's the question people should be asking?
Well, I think they should understand what you just described to me sounds perfectly legitimate. Because you are spending money on half of the marketing, and so you deserve to get a return on that investment. Every business that invests in something deserves to get a return. But as you
And
probably
your production, the typesetting and all that, the cover design, all that type of thing, we cover all that 100%. So yeah, we're
yeah,
invested,
okay.
which is why we're also picky with projects. We
Yes.
pick projects that we think will go and do well and all this sort of thing, and go from there.
Then
So
that's
yeah.
perfectly legitimate. But as you probably know, there are some so-called hybrid publishers in the space that charge the author for everything and then
Yes.
take money in on the back end when the book is sold as well. So they have
Right. Which
they
is
have
vanity publishing with unnecessary steps.
yeah, but they call themselves publishers, right?
Right.
And so that
When they're really just book production companies.
yeah, except that they're taking the money on both ends. I mean, we're a book
Right.
production company too, but we don't take any money on the back end.
Right.
So you see, there,
That's exactly my point. Yes, exactly. That's where you
yeah,
went, right where I was going with it. Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So you're making an investment in the project. Your authors are paying for the editing. You're paying for the production and half of the marketing. That's a partnership. There's nothing wrong with that. And I'm sure you explain that to the authors up front.
Oh yeah, no, very
So
first
that
meeting, we break out exactly how much it's all going to cost, because I do those meetings. So we have a
yeah,
whole spreadsheet
yeah,
later, how much it's going to cost, what you pay when, covered. Here's what we're bringing to the table. Here's what you're bringing to the table. Yes, and I do those meetings. They take 45 minutes, and I
Yes.
do with every single one, and I end up with a personal relationship with every single author in our program. That's how
Yes.
close I'm the director of publications, and that's how close to every project I am.
Yes.
Sort of
Yes.
thing.
And that's again, that's an ordinary business partnership, no problems there. But some of these companies are charging the author for everything,
Right.
and they don't even explain to the author that, oh, by the way, you're also paying us on the back end every time you sell a book. They just report the royalty, and I've heard figures as low as 90 cents or $1 for every book sold that the author is making. When what we do is we upload the files to the author's own print-on-demand accounts, so the author gets every penny of net revenue when the book is sold. So we're just a production company. The author is the publisher.
Right. Yeah.
And that's how it works.
No, I mean this is the conclusion I came to when I decided to do it myself, and I had to go. I actually literally watched YouTube videos to learn how to do InDesign and everything. I was lucky I had worked in a job where I did InDesign all day every day, so it wasn't that hard. I just had to learn the particularities for books sort of thing, and answer some questions that I already had bumping around, and it was perfect. He's told me exactly how to do everything. It was great. And that was, I mean, I was kind of like, well, over at traditional, there's no upfront money, but the chances of getting that contract are low. And these days, they don't do any marketing for most projects.
That's
You're
right.
stuck with all of that anyway. And they're still getting a ton of money for the privilege.
Right.
Ugh. Unfortunately, the writing publishing ecosystem produces a scam a minute. And to your point about pay all this money, charge all this sort of thing, you're paying them all this sort of thing. And so I was just kind of like, you know what, I could figure out how to do this myself and keep the money myself. So that's not gonna do sort of thing. But I definitely also, having learned to do it all my own and knowing how time consuming it is, how stressful it is, and knowing that most people don't have the skills that I do with desktop publishing and all this type of thing. A service like yours makes a lot of sense all of a sudden to be kind of like, okay, you can have all the advantages of self-publishing, but get the production help you need with someone who's been in the industry forever and ever and knows the ins and outs, and you have to learn it the hard way. It's a guide all the way through the process. I think that's magical for you.
I think authors do understand they need services, and rightly so, because despite the people online that tell you can do it yourself, you're not going to get good results without someone having taught you the ins and outs of book design and knowing InDesign and knowing all of that you need to know to design a nice book. So, there's.
No, you can, in each of my 3 books, you can tell how much better I got with each one, because the third one looks way better than the first one. Like, the thing is, there is so much to learn and know, even if you have, real skills and everything. So, yes, and for the average person that's just putting out their first book, they've gone through the whole writing process, all this type of thing. Most people do not want to go through the drama of learning any of this stuff or the money for the Adobe Creative membership to get access to this. I mean, there's all this extra stuff, whereas they could just come to you.
Yeah. So we're all about good books. We've got a lot of experience. Like I said, we started in 2001, and we've done about 4,000 books since then. So we've produced every kind of book, large, small, 850 word page biographies and textbooks and everything in between.
Yeah. What's your favorite part of the process?
Oh, all of it, actually. I personally love typesetting myself, but now I've kind of moved into the role of just being the owner and doing the not so much fun stuff like bookkeeping and the complaint department occasionally.
Yes. Yeah, we have a staff of 11 at Soup, and I also tend to be that. One of the reasons I was a bit late to this recording is I was dealing with an author in one of our upcoming anthology collections who was having some complaints. I was the complaint department 2 minutes before we got on this show, so I completely understand.
Yeah, I mean, and it's okay. It's a communications process, and sometimes authors, they're feeling insecure because it's the first time for them. And I try to reassure them that, look, it's not the first time for us. And
yes,
just kind of try to calm down a little bit. We're going to take good care of you.
Yeah, no, that is, I have that conversation several times a week with
Yeah.
all of our authors at Soup, whom we love and all this type of thing. And we have a new project launching here shortly. And yes, there's lots of, and it's funny because I remind myself, this is the first time for them. We do
Yes.
this every day. Like there are 5 projects on the production schedule dashboard right now, sort of thing. It's like we do this all the time. I've done 3 myself. We have produced books while I have been at this company. I've got more coming down. I have one of my own coming down the line here soon. And so it's, for me, it's old hat, but for them, it's it's in many cases their very first time. And so
Yeah.
they're gonna, and part of, I view, from, I don't know if you feel the same, but I view as part of my job is to be the nice, calm voice in the wilderness. While the
Yes.
storm is raging, I'm kind of like, this is fine. Like I'm just sitting with the umbrella, like, this is fine. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, we'll redo your book trailer. It's totally fine. Like,
Well, there's so much information around right now. So the internet has completely changed the business world in good ways, but also in not so good ways, because it tends to create panic in the minds of customers, all customers, not just authors. And it's like, I just found this article that said, oh, yeah. What do I do? I said, you don't have to do anything. It's okay. We're going to take good care of you.
Yeah, what do you think between 2001 and now, and the advent of digital offset printing and Amazon and people doing so much all this type of thing? What do you think of all of that is the biggest change in this industry?
The biggest change I've seen is that books have gotten shorter. Excuse me. Back in the 90s and early 2000s, it wasn't unusual to have a novel that was 600 or 700 pages, for example. But nobody wants, now with the internet, we're used to getting our information in small chunks, and nobody wants that anymore. So sometimes people will come to me and they'll say, I wrote a book. Can you help me? And I'll say, yes. My first question is always, how many words are in the manuscript? And they'll say something like 10,000 words. And I have to explain as nicely as I can. That's not really a book. That's 40 pages. It's a booklet. So you should probably write more if you hope to sell it for a decent price and make some money.
No, the project we have coming out in a few weeks was the opposite problem. It arrived to us at about 180,000 words.
Yeah, that's too big.
Yes, through our development editing process, we got it down to 405 pages at 121,000 words. It's a little bit over what we wanted, but we're happy. I have a sci-fi and fantasy anthology coming up that right now has 110,000 words in total, and we're going to have to see how much stays and how much goes. But it's, we definitely understand that for sure. It's that's when someone says, "Oh, I have 10,000," it's kind of like, that's several great blog posts. Have you opened a Substack? Have you tried Medium.com? That's maybe a better venue for that material than printing something.
Yeah, and it's just, but again, it's their first timers, and they probably slaved for 6 months to write that 10,000 words, right? So you don't want to hurt feelings, but you have an obligation to explain how the retail book business works, and how most people don't know, in my experience, that the retailers take 40 to 55% of the cover price.
Yes.
They're always surprised to hear that. So there's the business aspect of it too. And that's why they need experts like your business and my business to make it easier. But like you said at the beginning, there's an awful lot of scammers out there. And that's part of the reason why I'm doing these podcasts too, because they're very good salespeople, apparently.
Well, here's the one thing I've learned about. So I started as a writer in 2005 when I was 17 years old. And I think I probably fell for every single writing scam there was at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so my dad, bless him, kind of started asking little, like, oh, what are you planning on doing with that? Or, oh, who are you talking to right now? And of course, very proudly, and he would then start Googling and finding out who was legit, who wasn't, and kind of be like, you shouldn't do that one, but these people over here. And so it kind of trained me how to kind of find these out. And I will say they stay up a lot later at night than you or I do, figuring out how to separate people from money. We would both, if we could figure out, if we did what they do, we both would be much richer. We'd be having this conversation in the south of France on a yacht, probably. And so
Yeah.
And yes, and so they stay up very late at night figuring out how to separate people from their money. And, unfortunately, the publishing industry is so opaque and is not engaged with by the vast majority of people that people go for it because it seems like, oh, this is a solution in a box sort of thing. And, books seem expensive, so I guess we'll spend that money sort of thing. We're not realizing what they've done or what they're not getting, or they could achieve the same goal for half
Mhm.
the cost,
Yes.
or find someone to partner with like us, or go pure self-publishing and save a lot of, and hire you to do the production and everything, end of things. I mean, there's so many other ways. And that's why one of the things I was horrified by is in all these writing courses and things out there, no one's teaching this stuff. I devote 3 modules in my course to this. Here's how you get an agent. Here's how you do trad. Here's how you do self-publishing. Here's indie press. And most of these, right, they're not teaching the other end of the problem, like how to put your work out there in a way that's safe and sane. And I'm like, well, in my course, you can learn how to revise and fix your grammar and figure out how to get started and also get your book out there. Like, I mean, we have a whole module just on book covers, sort of thing, and the services that I love that are good that you can use and all this type of thing. And so I'm always amazed at how opaque that information is. And I myself am trying to kind of break open that and get some transparency going. So
Yeah.
I that's why, honestly, that's kind of why I booked you, because not enough people are talking about this. So
No,
we're here. We're
and
here.
in fact, sometimes the people who are teaching don't know what they're talking about. They're teaching the wrong way to do things. I can't.
Yes.
Well, look at how many people are out there teaching that a manuscript should be formatted into a book in Microsoft Word. That's the biggie, right? And
Yes.
it's like, pooh, if you have any experience at all in publishing, that's not the way to go about it.
Right.
But it's free and it's, do it yourself. And a lot of people think do it yourself is fine. But what I always tell customer when I have that conversation with customers, I say, don't look at just what you're able to do yourself with your limited experience. Take what you've done and bring it to a bookstore. And now look at the books that are produced professionally, and you will absolutely, positively see a difference. And so will your buyers.
No, and people I think don't realize, even for those of us in production, I take a lot of cues from other books in the industry. I remember we had a question about a layout thing a couple months ago, and I was on the phone with my director of editorial, and we literally was kind of like, well, let's go pull 5 books on the shelf and see what they've done. So we're sitting there on the phone being like, okay, so this who did this? This is Hatchet. They're doing this and this. That's cool. Okay, this one, they're doing this and this. We could use this. Like, that's literally what we do, so that we're in like industry line. Like, even those of us who professionally do this are still looking, literally opening physical books and being like, okay, here's how we should do this sort of thing.
Oh,
And then we
absolutely.
tell design and
Absolutely.
get busy on that.
Absolutely, because the interior design is specific to the genre. You don't
Yes,
typeset a computer manual the same as a cookbook or a history book or a memoir or a novel.
right.
So, yeah, and same with covers. I tell my customers all the time what we want to do is emulate the covers that are currently out there in your genre so that your book looks like it belongs when Amazon shows your book and all of those best-selling books. You don't want
Yes.
your cover to look so different that people start scratching their heads and saying, "Gee, that must be self-published. I'm not going to take a chance."
No, I was very proud of myself. I did the photo for my novel. I designed my first book cover, which was okay, but I end up having my personal designer do another one. And then she does designs all my stuff and has for 15 years. My second one, I did the photo for it and I edited it and it looked really great. I loved it, all this sort of thing. And I did all the graphics for the spine and the back and everything. I love my mom's reaction. She's like, because it's called cast iron and there's a guy. I hired this my neighbor, this construction kid, to hold this pan on the cover, and my mom's like, I feel like it's coming at me off the book cover. I'm like, good. That means it's evocative. That was the point, mom. Like, so I'm like, the cover's good. We got a good one here with this one. So and we have at Soup, we have a wonderful designer named Veronica who does absolutely great work at taking, because we work with our authors on this, sometimes the disparate ideas we have about a cover, and she's so good at taking our disparate vibes and turning it into a book cover.
It's a lot
So
more work than people think.
it is definitely, yes, having
Yeah.
designed 3, it is a lot. I mean, I spent as much time on the cover for Cast Iron as I did on the internal layout. Like,
Yep.
those were equal time spent, sort of
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
And yeah, and we definitely, I mean, we have as many production meetings on covers. Honestly, we have fewer emails on the interior design, which at this point is fairly well set for us. There's a lot of emails about that back and forth, but we have emails on the interior design. We have meetings about covers. Like
Yes.
we have actual meetings and go through, and we sometimes have cover contests with readers and all this sort of thing. And so it is a lot. It's intense, and that's why you need that. I mean, in my mind, like that's why it's good to have the help. I think,
Yes.
is to have someone to guide you through the crazy
Yes,
process.
I have a mom story as well. When I first
Mm.
started in this business, I said, Mom, I'm designing a book jacket. And she said, What's a book jacket? And I said, The paper that goes, the wrapper that goes around a hardcover book. And she said, Oh, I always throw that away. So
Yeah,
we
yeah,
have to keep in
that's
mind where the reader is too.
yes, absolutely. Well, there was at one time that was the convention. That wasn't something people hung on to. They get damaged. It was meant to keep it dust and all this stuff, and they were kind of disposable. It was the hard inside that was supposed to be the important part, and now we save them. So
Yes.
I'm not surprised about that because it was.
But I was crushed.
Of course, yes, of course, of course. It's like, but do you have any idea how many hours was spent on that bit of paper? Like, no, that's that's tremendous. That's tremendous. So, um, yeah. So when it comes to all of this, what do you? I mean, are you picky with projects, or you just take whoever's coming along?
No, we there's some that we won't take, but basically I look at it this way: if our team can fix up the book,
Yeah,
then we will do so. I don't believe it's our role to tell the author what to do. If we see something that they're about to dive off a cliff, we will say, you really probably shouldn't do that. but
yeah.
but basically, we will honor the author's intent. I'm sure they gave a lot of thought and work to it, and we will work with them and make their book as good as it can be.
No, that's excellent. What is it when it comes to Amazon KDP and Ingram Spark and all this type of thing? I obviously know what those services are. Why don't you walk people through them really fast? Because a lot of
Okay.
people don't know about those yet. So let's talk about them for a little bit.
They don't. And basically there's a gazillion self-publishing companies, but there are really only two print-on-demand companies. And that's KDP.com, which is owned by Amazon, and IngramSpark.com, which is owned by the Ingram Company, which has been in business for 100 or more years. So print on demand, back in the day, even if you vanity published a book, you would have to go out and print thousands of copies, and then you would hope to sell them. So you had to put all that money out to print all those copies of your book. Print on demand literally means that the book is not printed until it's sold. So there's no upfront cost for book printing, unless, of course, you want to order a few copies for yourself and your own distribution. But that too revolutionized the publishing industry, because that opened the door for all kinds of people who couldn't think about publishing before to get into the business and be able to distribute their creative work to the public. So it's been great. We recommend that authors use both platforms in conjunction, using KDP to distribute to Amazon, but only Amazon, and then using Ingram Spark to distribute to what they call the expanded distribution network, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, libraries, other distributors, and so forth. And the reason for that is that Amazon takes 40% of the cover price as their commission, and most of the sales are going to come from Amazon. Ingram Spark, because they feed physical bookstores, the recommended discount there is 55%. And so Ingram will also feed Amazon, but why pay 55% when you can pay 40? So it's just an economic decision.
Yes, I have also recently heard, although not investigated myself, Draft to Digital, which
Mm-hmm.
used to be an ebook only thing, is now offering print on demand. I've not investigated it yet, everybody, but the rumor on the street is they're now also printing. They were a big player because people could literally upload their Word file and get an ebook back out from it. And I've heard they're now offering some print development services. So just
Yeah,
for
but I haven't looked into them either. I hear them mentioned a lot, but
I
again,
prefer Ingram and Amazon together. That's what we use at Soup, and
yeah,
that's what I would. I mean, when I first started, I just did Ingram and let Ingram go to Amazon. Didn't want to deal with Amazon anymore, as little as possible. And most of my book sales don't come from Amazon, actually. But no, I think your system and setup is I think, at least for now, until we see what they're doing over there at that Draft Digital, I think those are definitely the best options.
yeah.
To
The
get started,
problem,
you're in lots of places, you're on lots of websites, and there are retailers like Target and Walmart that take the entire Ingram catalog. So you get to be
exactly.
on Target.com, Walmart.com. So if you come onto this show, for example, and you have the title of your book, people can literally put in their favorite shopping app, and your book is probably going to be there.
Exactly.
That's powerful. I mean, that's just powerful.
And the problem with using Ingram alone is that Amazon is a bully. If they
Yes.
see the book is coming only from Ingram, they put up that tag that says it's going to take 2 weeks to get your book.
Right.
And it's not true because Ingram prints the book in 24 hours, just like KDP does. But
Right.
Amazon doesn't want to fix that because they want to get the printing of the book themselves through KDP.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
No, and at Soup we have it in under both for exactly that reason, and also the
Yeah.
discount thing, and I've sat in too many meetings about that too. So it's the whole
Yes.
thing. Well, this has been absolutely delightful. We're coming to a close. Any kind of final thoughts, words of warning you would have for people who are just starting their publishing journey?
Just ask a lot of questions. If anybody offers you a royalty, ask how it's calculated so you can be sure that whatever they're doing, you're on board with.
Yep.
Go for quality. Try not to go too cheap because it takes a lot of hours to do a book the right way. And people who sometimes promote cheap prices, often that's a bait and switch technique where you don't find out what the real price is until after you've signed a contract. So we have all of our prices on our website. You can call and ask us anything you want, and we will always be truthful with you. The reason for that is that the nuns who taught me are dead, but they're still watching.
Well, yes, and if you this is the usual time that we do plugs, so let us know where we can catch you online and keep up with you on socials and all that sort of thing.
Okay, my company is 1106design.com, and you can find all sorts of samples and articles and information and pricing there. And you can book a no pressure consultation. And I promise we will not send you 5 emails a day if you express interest in us. I also have a newsletter on Substack
Very nice,
called,
very
called Publish Like the Pros.
Published like the pros on Subject. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for coming on the Cameron Journal podcast.
Thank you so much, Cameron. I appreciate talking shop with somebody who does pretty much the same thing.
Thank you. That's all for this episode of the Cameron Journal podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Visit us online at CameronJournal.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And I love to talk to my followers and listeners, so please feel free to get us on social media at Cameron Cowan on Twitter. And we'll see you next time on the Cameron Journal podcast.